Level check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Meteorologist Steve Horstmeyer coming to you from the First Alert Weather Center. Got to push a couple more buttons here because Ashley Smith uses a slightly different setup than I do. All right, so if you're watching on Facebook, waiting for this to start. If you're watching, it'll be a minute, but on YouTube, you should be getting audio soon, and not necessarily right away. And excuse me, I may have to sneeze a few times tonight, so what I'll do is I'll mute the mic so you don't have to hear it. All right, now call up the weather computer, which should be set up and ready to go. Not that one. Okay, now it is 7:15. It is time to get this show on the road. And what you're looking at here is you're looking at the beautiful sky at sunset. When you're looking away from the sun, you get that beautiful gradation of color there. Looking toward the sun, it's a little bit different, but that's a really, really nice sun, looking away from the sunset, but a sunset sky looking off to the southeast from our tower cam. And overall, we've got some really great weather on the way to the tri-state, and we'll talk about Hurricane Milton coming up, of course, around the area. So what we're looking at here is another night like we had last night. It'll cool off. Most areas will drop off into the lower 40s. Some spots will drop into the upper 30s. And right now, the international airport temperature, which is the official for this area, 67 degrees. So we're on our way to some pretty chilly weather around the tri-state once again. So here are the airport temperatures as of 7 p.m., mostly in the mid, well, I guess there are equal number of low, mid, and upper 60s around the tri-state. And that pretty nice evening out there without any wind, without a lot of humidity. It all adds up to a nice evening. And essentially what we've got coming our way is a few more days like that with a gradual warming trend, which should take us into the 80s as we head on into the weekend. So overnight, we're looking at temperatures by 7:30 a.m. Once again, down into the low 40s in most locations. Notice this particular model has Maysville at 39. And remember, there are a lot of spots in between where we have those numbers that there could be cooler temperatures. So a number of spots will drop into the upper 30s, most areas in the lower 40s, and then back up into the 70s during the day. Okay, now this is model output. This is not a radar. There are, you can't really get a good radar picture, even though there's a radar in Cancun, the Mexican Meteorological Service zones, it's hard to get access to it. But right there is where the model that I've been using, the one that's based on, that IBM has developed. And watch as we head on into the next couple of days, okay? There you see the hurricane spinning around, heading to the north and east, heading toward the coast of Florida. And right there, it comes on shore, and that is about 1:20 a.m. So we're thinking somewhere around 1:20 a.m. This will cross the shore. This is the Tampa Bay area right here. So right around Tampa. The center of it is right in this area, a little bit south of Tampa. That's just this model. Doesn't mean it's going to be exactly right. We'll look at the Hurricane Center's forecast in a minute. But what I wanted to show you is that even though the hurricane, when it comes on shore, that is the time that happens is when the center of the eye crosses the coast. Well, you know, a hurricane's a big circular storm. In this case, it's lost a little bit. But before the eye even gets there, you've already got damaging storm surge, damaging winds, flooding rains, things like that. So meteorologists use the center of the eye as a good geographical designator. So you can say, oh, the center of the eye was at this latitude and this longitude, and it was about 400 miles in diameter, and then you can easily draw a circle and gives you a really good idea where it is. But that's not the best measure of what's going to happen for the individual, because the storminess gets there long before the center of the eye does, as you know. Okay, so that's 7:20 a.m. on Thursday. And if you watch this, you can see it crossing the peninsula. This particular model kind of kills the rainfall with it. Not every model does that. But overall, what's going to happen is you're going to see that cross right over Orlando. It's going to go off the coast near Daytona Beach, and it's going to come on shore, according to the Hurricane Center's forecast, as a Cat 3 hurricane, drop to a Cat 2, drop to a Cat 1 as it reaches the Atlantic coast, and then move off into the ocean. So it's a big, big problem for Florida with that hurricane strength storm crossing the entire peninsula and the entire state. Okay, so here is the latest from the Hurricane Center. Now, they send in an intermediate update. Usually the updates are at 5 o'clock. They did send that in. They sent one in at 5:30 to update the center pressure. The next full update comes at 11, but the intermediate update comes at 8. And last night it came in early enough so that we were still on the air here on this streaming show to let you know that what the latest was, and we're going to continue to try and do that. So Category 5 right now. Okay, this is where it was when they last measured it. The center is a little bit further north and east than that. Heading to the northeast by 2 a.m. It'll still have 165 mile an hour winds with gusts to 200. And that'll be 2 a.m. overnight, tomorrow morning. It's going to continue to move to the north and east. By 2 p.m. on Wednesday, it's going to drop to a Category 4 hurricane. That's still a big, strong hurricane. And if you watch what happens here, so there's the Category 4, and then we're looking at 2 a.m. This particular hurricane forecast from the Hurricane Center says that by 2 a.m. On Thursday, it'll be just off the coast of Sarasota. Now, the earlier runs had it coming a little bit further north, right here into Tampa Bay. They've adjusted it a little bit south, so it looks like the eye might pass over Sarasota. But then as it does, I don't know why, we know Orlando's not on the coast. Something's wrong with this map. Orlando's inland. But Orlando should be over here. And so this is going to weaken, cross right across the Florida Peninsula, go right over top of Orlando, come off the coast somewhere around Daytona, and then head off into the Atlantic and die out. Good news about this storm is it is not going to arc back around and cause a problem for the people in like western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee, northern Georgia, eastern Kentucky, parts of Virginia that had so much flooding and so many problems with this storm. So this is not going to be a factor or further aggravate the really dire situation and down in those areas. Excuse me for a second. I've got to wet my whistle here a little bit. Okay. So you know what this means. This means high winds. If it's coming on shore, it's a Category 3. That means sustained winds of 125 miles an hour. That also means wind gusts higher than that, maybe 150 miles an hour. So the winds will do damage, but much, much more powerful is the storm surge. And I'm going to do a little science here. It's kind of interesting because let's say you have a cubic yard, and I'll use yards because that's what we're used to instead of meters, a cubic yard of air. Okay, at sea level, it's 75 degrees. It's going to weigh a certain amount. Okay, if you have right next to it a cubic yard of salt water, it's going to weigh about 843 times as much. So think about that cubic yard of air being thrown at your car, and then think of that cubic yard of water, if you could pick it up, thrown at your car. The water is going to do a lot more damage because there's a lot more mass there. So on a Category 4 hurricane with 135 mile an hour winds, that'll do a certain amount of damage to a building. The equivalent in terms of storm surge is about a storm surge coming on and hitting the building at about 5.7 miles an hour. So 135 mile an hour wind hitting your building has as much power, maybe even a little bit less, than a storm surge that's, let's say, 5 feet high, hitting the side of a building at about 5 to 6 miles an hour. That's because, every cubic yard of water that comes on shore weighs as much as 843 cubic yards of air. So the air also compresses, so when the air hits like a building, it does a little bit of compression, so all the force isn't, in other words, you could do this, and all the force isn't hitting the building immediately because the air itself absorbs some of that. Water is, by earthly measures and earthly forces, is incompressible. So as that water hits the building, it doesn't compress and absorb a little of the force, it just hits that building and goes through. So the storm surge is much, much, much more powerful. And according to the FEMA website that I saw, and I kind of checked the calculations, it seemed ballpark accuracy to me, that a wind speed of 135 miles an hour around a Cat 4 hurricane has just a little bit less power or less force than about a 6 mile an hour storm surge that's 5 feet high hitting the same building, because the weight of the water is so much more. So that's why everybody is so worried about storm surge. And you might have seen the mayor of Tampa say that if you choose to stay, you probably will die. Okay, and that's exactly what she said earlier today. Now, of course, that assumed a direct hit on Tampa, and it looks like the hurricane's shifting a little bit farther south, as you can see right there. But right now, again, 165 mile an hour winds, gust to 200, pressure 905 millibars, okay? So let's take a little bit, another look at all this. So here's the path. Category 3 is coming on shore early Thursday morning. Category 1 is it exits the coast of Florida. That would be during the, let's see, so that's during the afternoon hours of Thursday, and then it dies out over the Atlantic Ocean. And a wide view shows you pretty much what's going on from north of Cancun right now, all the way up across Florida, and then off into the Atlantic. And one of the interesting things you've probably heard a lot of newscasts say, or news accounts, or however you get your news, is that they're trying to clean up the debris from Helene. Because just think of that, if 125 mile an hour winds come on shore and you've got all those piles of debris that people had to take out of their houses and were waiting to have picked up, that's a flying debris. That's stuff that can kill people and of course batter buildings, along with the new debris in that. So they've got a horrible problem down there, and they seem to be handling it pretty well. It seems like they've got things not necessarily under control, but they're doing as well as can be expected. Okay, so this is a map of the expected storm surge, okay, and if we zoom in on this, look right here, you can see the purple color, that's this one. This is saying 9 to higher than 12 feet of storm surge. So any place, anywhere from this purple, north of Tampa to south of Fort Myers, any place in purple that has an elevation that's less than 12 feet above sea level could be inundated, all right? And in particular, things like Tampa Bay here, you know, and there's actually 3 bays. There's Old Tampa Bay, there's another one I can't remember the name of, and then they all drain into Tampa Bay. But they act as funnels. So in here you just have the water coming up on shore. Here you've got the water being funneled into the narrower end of it, and so the storm surge flooding can be much worse along the shores of the bay than it would be just there along the coast. It's not going to be good anywhere. And notice there are some higher spots. The Tampa itself, the highest elevation is 43 feet. So it doesn't mean Tampa, the entire city, is going to be underwater, but it does mean all these areas. And we can take a closer look at all that. Okay, so all we've got to do is hit the right space bar and the right button. Let's look at it, help you look at it full screen. I don't know, why is this not working today? Well, let's see, maybe I can do it manually. When the computer fails, just kick it and go on. All right, so what we're looking at now is, and actually if you look at this in a little bit more detail, you can see the purple extends a little bit up here off the map and ends. So from north of Spring Hill down through Beacon Square, and I've not been to this part of Florida, so those of you that have been may know some of these places. So Beacon Square, Clearwater, Tampa, Boca Ciega, Ruskin, Palmetto, Sarasota, there's all quite, I mean, look at this in Palmetto. I mean, it's miles inland that storm surge could be greater than 12 feet deep. This entire area, Boca Ciega, Clearwater, only a few spots high enough that there won't be storm surge flooding. And then here's that funnel effect. This is Tampa Bay, so as that water comes rushing on shore like this, it gets funneled into that. And so Ruskin and the lower elevations of Tampa can be especially affected with that. So from north of Spring Hill down to south of Sarasota, we can go and look at it in a little bit more detail. So from south of Sarasota down to Fort Myers, almost to Naples, you could see some storm surge flooding that's 9 to higher than 12 feet. all along this area. When you get to Naples, it lessens up quite a bit, and you see that there will still be storm surge flooding. Not many people down this way. It's not nearly as densely populated as when you get north of Naples, but overall, even all the way down to Homestead, you can't see the whole thing, but that's Homestead, where Hurricane Andrew did so much damage years ago. So storm surge flooding, probably the biggest issue right now. Not that much less of an issue is the high wind speeds that are going to fall or going to occur. Excuse me. And then, of course, flooding is going to be an issue. Now, take a look at this. I like to show this because this shows you the power of storm surge. This is the Richelieu apartment complex in 1969, and that road right there is the road, and right across that road is the beach where the Gulf of Mexico is. So this is what the apartment complex looked like. It had a swimming pool. It was nice. It was a concrete and brick building, so well built. And by 1969 standards, probably better built than some buildings nowadays. And so this is what happened. This is just a couple days before Hurricane Camille got there, and Camille generated a 24-foot storm surge. Okay, now we're going to go to almost the same view right after Camille was over. And look at that, gone. That building, let's go back, there it is before. It looks like 2 to 3 stories, gone, completely gone, okay? Now, there are all kinds of legends that grew up around this that said there was a big hurricane party around there, and that the people basically died. Only one person is known to have survived from that building, and that person was washed almost 20 miles inland by the storm surge, according to some of the sources. And I've talked to other people that say that probably was a hurricane party, because that's pretty typical of what they did back then. But then after Camille came with that 24-foot, just imagine standing on the beach where you normally would lay your towel and thinking of the water 24 feet deep above your head. And remember, that water, even though it's traveling more slowly, is much more powerful than the wind, and it just took this building. You don't even see piles of debris. It just washed it all away. And so that is why everybody is so worried about storm surge, because storm surge is a lot of power, and if it's high enough, a 5-foot storm surge can easily take out a well-built 3-story building without any problem whatsoever. Okay, so let's go to rainfall now, and the good news about this is the rainfall is not going to be that excessive, not because it's not going to rain hard, but because the hurricane's moving at a pretty good pace. And so even though it's going to rain heavily, it doesn't have enough time to dump a lot of rain because it's moving quickly enough across the peninsula. This is just one model. The other models I've looked at actually have a little bit less. And then you always have to talk about the possibility of some errors. And so even though it has 6 inches in Tampa, 6.5 in Orlando, 5.8 in Sugar Mill Woods, Cape Coral at 3.5, 1.7 Port St. Lucie, you still could see, even if you got 6 inches here, you could still see 10 inches to a foot in a few spots. Some of the models have about 18 inches offshore, and then as it comes onshore, less. But this is one of the hardest things to forecast when it comes to hurricanes, is how much rain is going to fall, because there are a lot of things that go on within a hurricane that we don't really understand completely. So I would say I would not be surprised if this model is saying 6 inches here, 6.5 in Orlando, that we're going to end up with maybe 10 inches in some spots. Good news is it's not going to be like what happened in western North Carolina, because this is a very flat area. I've been to this part of Florida, but it's a very flat area, and there are a few undulations, but no big hills. So you don't have all that water falling in those tall mountain slopes, flying down into the valleys and then washing whole communities away. The ground is pretty wet down there after they got all that rain from Helene, so there will be flooding. There's little doubt that there'll be flooding, but it is not going to be the devastating kind of flooding, excuse me, that you end up with in North Carolina. Okay, let's go back to full screen, and what I'll do is take a drink while you're looking at that. So the Hurricane Center and all the federal agencies that look at this have given you a hurricane or a rainfall flooding threat from the hurricane. Moderate down here in the southern part, and that includes the Keys. So a moderate threat, or a threat of moderate flooding, a threat of major flooding when you get north of Lake Okeechobee up here into the Tampa area, and then from Tampa, St. Pete, eastward across the peninsula over toward Daytona through the area around Orlando, extreme flooding could take place, back down to major, and when you get just a moderate risk up here near the Jacksonville area. So flooding, certainly not an issue like it is in mountainous western North Carolina, because the water, it's not going to run off as fast, but it's not going to be those rushing torrents that took out entire towns. But it will be a problem. I mean, I don't mean to minimize it. I just mean to say that you're not going to have the problem with, water coming 20 feet high, coming down out of a valley at 40 miles an hour. This will be water that slowly drains off, but kind of takes a while to drain off because there's not a lot of elevation change. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the wind threat. The wind threat here, as you can see, pretty much centered on the Tampa area. So Tampa down here into Cape Coral, you see about 110 mile an hour winds are a good bet. That's only for a good portion of the Gulf Coast into the center part of the peninsula, and then as that hurricane weakens heading across, the winds get less. So surrounding that 110 mile purple area here, you've got 74 to 110. On either side of that, you've got 58 to 73. And then when you get down to Miami and the Keys, it's 39 to 57, same thing up in Jacksonville. So the biggest problems there, and one of the things we haven't talked about yet is the tornado threat, okay? And if you look at this, you should look at it full screen for a few seconds. It really is almost always to the right of the track, okay? The track is like this, so it's be down here. So they're saying, well, maybe a little bit north of Tampa, a few tornadoes could pop up. From Tampa all the way down into the Keys, several tornadoes are possible. And when I was down in 2008, down in Lake Charles for the hurricane, we ended up, they had 53 tornadoes in one day just in our station's viewing area down there. And so you're talking, and depending on exactly how the hurricane weakens in its track and all that, you could see 40 to 50 tornadoes reported all through the entire southern half of the Florida peninsula. The good news is that they typically aren't like the long track monsters that we get around here. They're pretty brief tornadoes, but still they have a lot of power, and if they hit your house, they can do a lot of damage. So that's it for the tornado risk. Okay, now this is the latest loop of the eye, and what you can see here, if you look at this closely, you can see, when we start out here, the eye still got a little cloud cover in it, but as the hurricane strengthens back to Category 5 status, you can see that eye clearing out quite a bit. And so whenever you see a hurricane with a well-defined eye like this, it's a powerful storm. And let's see, you can't see that now. So let's go on, zoom out and see where it is, a better view here. And you can see that, so Cancun is right in here. So this is north of Cancun, almost due north now, heading to the north and east, expected to take a track just about like this up into the Tampa area and then across the peninsula. And that track is primarily controlled by the other weather systems around it. So, and you can already see the strong flow of tropical air heading into Florida with rain. It's already almost to Tampa, and that's just the fact that this thing is so powerful. It's dragging air from near the equator all the way north into Florida with rain with it. So big, powerful hurricane, Category 5 right now. It'll still be a Category 3 when it comes on shore, according to the Hurricane Center's forecast, and that's still rated as a major hurricane. And so there's a little bit better view of it. Okay, and we head into our neck of the woods now. Nothing going on here, kind of boring around here. The sun set at 7:11, so it's been down for 20 let's see, did I do that right? 27 minutes by my calculation. Is that right? 27 and, yes. Okay, and so we expect the temperature to drop to 51 by 11 p.m. overnight, down to about 44. That'll be about 8 a.m. And again, there will be some spots around the tri-state that drop off into the upper 30s. And then the high tomorrow, 75. That'll be about 5 p.m. So another absolutely gorgeous day around the tri-state tomorrow. Okay, now let's go into the longer term stuff. This is the Climate Prediction Center's forecast. Now, they update this every single day, okay? And why did I get to the, give me a second. Somehow we skipped the 6 to 10 day outlook. I think I made a mistake here and didn't turn that one on. So let me go back. Yeah, that's exactly what I did. Okay. All right, so now we'll get to the 6 to 10 day outlook, okay, from the Climate Prediction Center. There it comes. Okay, now what we've got here, we've got a nice large area of significantly cooler than normal weather, which takes in our viewing area, and that's for the 14th to the 18th of October. And so what's going to happen here is once the tropical system gets out of the way, okay, once it's off to the ocean, the tropical traffic jam is over and things will start moving again, and we expect a cool front to bring some chilly air from Canada our way, and that will occur next week. You'll see in the 7-day forecast, we make it up to 80 both Saturday and Sunday, and then the cooler air arrives, and so through the 18th we should be a bit cooler than normal. All right, so we go to the next outlook, the second half of their forecast, which is updated daily. It goes out to the 22nd, and there is a little overlap there. Notice the cooler than normal weather has moved off to the south and east, and we're starting to get back into the warmer than normal. And then for weeks 3 to 4, October 23rd to the 5th of November, looks like warmer than normal weather here in the tri-state. Now remember, we are still waiting for a La Nina pattern to develop, and I'll have more information on the status of the La Nina tomorrow for you right here, because it's developing a lot more slowly than they expected. They originally had it already formed by now and becoming a moderate to strong La Nina. Now they're thinking, maybe it'll be a short, weak La Nina, so that will definitely affect our winter forecast. And one of the thing, without analyzing it, if it's a typical weak La Nina, that means the precipitation for the winter season will not be that much more than normal. And so we may start off planting season and growing season next year with slightly dry soil conditions. So we'll just have to see how that works out. But that's the one thing in the back of my mind right now. Okay, so that's October 23rd to November 5th. It stays drier than normal. And then the 6 to 10 day outlook right there says drier than normal 8 to 14. And then we end up with drier than normal through November 5th. So it looks like we're going to head through the rest of this month into next month with drier than normal weather around the tri-state. Now, because of the way my garage was built, they did a lot of fill, and when they put the blacktop, I just got a lot of rocks underneath what looked like soil. So we gave up trying to grow stuff, and we put a bunch of viburnum in pots. I had to water those again today because they dried out like crazy. So a lot of people that, you know, if your lawn is dry, one of the ways to help it survive winter, help the root systems, we're not talking about the green part of it above the ground anymore, but is by keeping it watered. So a lot of people may still be watering their lawns around the tri-state. Okay, here's your 7-day forecast. Low overnight 44, high 75 on Wednesday, 45 and 72 on Thursday, 47 and 75 on Friday. Saturday and Sunday up into the lower 80s, both days, lows in the 50s, highs in the low 80s. And again, that'll be really nice. The normal high is down to about 70 by Saturday and Sunday. And without the summertime humidity, it'll be good. It'll be nice, pleasantly cool mornings, warm afternoons. When you're in the sun, because the air will be very clear, the sun will feel really strong. When you step into the shade, it'll be very comfortable. And then, remember, said that it was going to get cooler than normal. Well, Monday, small chance of a few showers as the front comes through with a high of 70, down to a high of 67, and mostly sunny on Tuesday. Now that eyeball there is that we are watching Sunday for it to become a first alert weather day. And the issues for Sunday, if it becomes a first alert weather day, would be wind gust and fire danger, okay? So what's going on is a couple of the models have us with 40 to 45 mile an hour wind gust as that front gets closer and comes through. And we know how dry it is out there, and we really don't have any rain falling before then. And so a gusty day would mean pretty much of an enhanced fire danger. And so we're thinking in terms that Sunday may be a first alert weather day based on winds gusting over 40, which could cause damage, could cause power outages, you know the works, tree limb damage, roof damage, and fire danger in addition to that because of the dry conditions around the tri-state. And let me tell you what, if somebody gets a grass fire going and we've got 40 to 45 mile an hour wind gust, it will spread very far, very fast in this kind of dry weather. Okay, here is beyond the 7-day. And again, very consistent with what we just saw in the other stuff. High temperature, think of the high temperatures like 69 by the time we get to the 22nd. Actually, let me just look it up instead of saying kind of around. Let me look it up and see what kind of a normal high and low we have by the time we get to the 22nd of the month. And let's see here. Just takes me a couple seconds to get to the Weather Service's climate webpage. Okay, and of course my iPhone never ever likes to cooperate, so you got to reload, then you go to it. Now it works. All right, go to the normals page for Cincinnati. And again, my iPhone decides it doesn't want to work. Boy, you know, iPhones, most of the people I know have a love-hate relationship with iPhones, and I tend to lean more toward the negative side. iPhones are just that way. But I can't live without it. I mean, my gosh, you know, especially in the weather business here. Okay, so let's go to October 22nd. Normal high is 64, normal low is 43. So by the time we get to the 22nd, right back here, normal high is 64. So this is 8 warmer than normal. Low temperature of 50 is 7 warmer than normal. So we're looking at warmer than normal weather pretty much through here except for the 17th. So warmer than normal with not much in the way of rainfall until you get to the 22nd, and that's just a big question mark at this point in time. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the next 14 days look like temperature-wise. And so you can see when we put the normal lines on here, the normal high drops from 70 today to 64 for the 22nd, and that just dawned on me. Didn't have to look it up, just could have gone to this graphic. 49, the normal low, down to 43. And if you look at that closely, you can see that, well, up through the 14th, we're above normal, then we're about normal for a few days, and right back above normal. And then same thing on the low side. We're below normal for a while, and we do the same thing back up to above normal by the end of that 14-day stretch. So that's what it looks like. It looks like dry weather as we head into November and warmer than normal weather. And a La Nina that everybody thought would happen that doesn't seem to be happening at this point. But I'll do some research into it overnight and tomorrow morning, and we'll give you the status on what the La Nina looks like and whether it's developing or not. Okay, time to go to camera 1, and that was pretty smooth, unusually so. All right, let me take a look at what we've got as far as comments go on Facebook, and I hope that most people that usually watch us are out enjoying the weather. Susan Wally says, hope you're having a great evening. I am. The weather is awesome. Yes, it is, Susan. And Herminio Domingo says, what's for dinner? I don't know. I had peanut butter and jelly earlier. Donald Edmonds, hooday. Okay, yeah, you know what? I feel sorry for Joe Burrow because Joe Burrow played a fine game. He threw that one interception, which was kind of a problem at that point in the game. But, I mean, 5 touchdown passes, all those yards. It's one of the best games he's ever had. They still lost. So So that happens. Darla Watson, good evening. Hi there, Darla. Hope you're doing okay. Okay, can I show the radar for the upcoming weekend in Ohio? Yeah, sure enough. And you're not. This is from Nick Fisher. Nick, you're not going to see much in the way. I've got to. Let me look up the model that I have. It's going to take me a couple seconds here. But as far as the weather goes this weekend, there could be a sprinkle Sunday night, and then Monday the chance for a few showers. But as that cool front comes through, we're going to see pretty windy weather on Sunday, and that's why we had that eyeball in the 7-day forecast, and that eyeball indicated that we might just end up, we might have wind advisories or high wind warnings. We might end up with fire weather advisory or something like that. They used to call it red flag warnings and red flag watches, but I think they just call them fire weather, which is better because it tells you exactly what it is. So that fire danger, if we get those winds, fire danger is definitely going to be up there during the day on, okay, golly, where did it go? And again, remember I told you my file system here on the weather computer is kind of like a sock drawer. Get a little bit of everything and nothing seems to make sense. Okay. There's model viz. What I'm going to do here, I am going to oh my gosh, where is it? I'm sorry it's taking me so long to get there, but oh, I know where it is. Geez, I moved it so I could put it at the beginning of the show, and then I just forgot about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load the model that has that I showed you with the hurricane, okay? And so let me show you. This is the one that we saw before, and I'll just move the map over. I'll zoom out, I'll move the map over, and we will take a look at this for us so we can see what's going on for this, this weekend. All right, so you go to the camera layer, you zoom out a little bit. Okay, and and we're going to ignore the hurricane now. We're just going to zoom into Cincinnati. And we'll just play it through here. Now this is set to go, I'll make it Monday here. So we'll go on into Monday now. Okay, so Nick, let's take a look here. And what we'll see here is this. Okay, you can see the cloud band off to in the far southeastern or lower right-hand corner. You can see the cloud shield from the hurricane working its way northward. We're into Thursday now. We're going into Friday. So Friday morning, nothing. And oops, this is stopped. Why did it stop? Okay. Oh, I know. I've got to change models too. Jeez, some days. The model that we used there to show the hurricane earlier only goes out a few days. Doesn't go out long enough. So we'll go to the Euro. And I'm just going to turn off the cloud cover so it doesn't confuse us. All right. And so we're now, okay, so you can see the clock at the top. We're now into Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday. It's not showing anything at all there. So this particular model, the new run, is saying not even a shower on Monday. So Nick, I don't think you're going to see any rainfall, as a matter of fact. And that was Nick Fisher. Yeah, Nick, you said that. So it doesn't look like any rain this weekend at all. What we are watching, though, is for that possibility of some strong winds on Sunday. And remember, it can be more than like power outages, tree and limb damage, roof damage, this case. It would also have fire danger, excuse me, with it, because everything's so dry out there. So that's what we're thinking of. Not all the models agree at this point, but 2 of the longer range models do have the winds gusting over 40 miles an hour through a good portion of the day on Sunday. Okay, so let's go back here. I tell you what, Let's see if the 8 o'clock update is in yet for the hurricane. All right. No, that's not it. Give me a second. Here we go. And it'll pop up here in a second. No, it's still the 5:30. So it comes out any minute now. So I'm going to talk for a little while about some other things, and we'll wait for that to update to the 5:30. It doesn't always update when we're sitting on it, so we'll just go to a map of what the temperatures will look like around here tomorrow morning, and I'll put myself back on the screen here. So what I wanted to talk about is that last night the Hurricane Center did not have the hurricane dropping to below Category 5 status. But what happened, it was close enough to the Yucatan Peninsula, and one of the viewers asked me about that. And I said, yeah, it'll probably slow it down a little bit, and we observed that. What they didn't have in the forecast was what's called an eye wall replacement cycle. Okay, and everybody knows that hurricanes got an eye with calm weather. Surrounding that is the fierce winds and really strong thunderstorms of the eye wall. Okay, and those circulate around. Those are where the 200-mile-an-hour winds are, and they circulate in the northern hemisphere. They circulate like this, counterclockwise. Well, what's happening is because the hurricane is a low pressure system, it's pulling air in, and it's kind of contorted. I mean, it pulls air in, spiraling it in, so not straight in, but kind of around the center, and then it just throws it up into the atmosphere. And so what's happening is all this energy at the surface is converging on the center of the hurricane. Well, just like if you've got too much traffic on the road system converging on one point, things are eventually going to back up. The drain's going to get clogged, so to speak. That's what happens with the energy, not just the energy of the warm, moist air, but the rotational energy also. So the warm, moist air is thermodynamic energy. The rotational energy is more mechanical. But so what's happening is all that stuff is, and again, it's spiraling in around the center, not coming straight in like my hands are showing. But so eventually, and this only is really observed in Cat 3 or stronger hurricanes, so eventually there's enough energy concentrating in a band around the eye wall that a new eye wall has enough energy to form. Okay, so what happens is all that energy, both the rotational energy and the thermal energy of the water drops in that, is concentrated outside of the eye wall. It gets strong enough for a new band or new ring of thunderstorms to form, so then you have two eye walls. You've got the original one, the inner one's smaller, and you've got this newly formed outer eye wall that's forming because of the accumulation of all the energy that's available. Okay, and again, it has to be a really strong hurricane for this to happen. Well, once that outer, the newer eye wall forms, it cuts off the inner eye wall from that inflowing energy. It begins to suck it up and keep it all for itself. Okay, so what happens then is the outer eye wall is forming, getting stronger. It kills the inner eye wall. At that point, the hurricane weakens a little bit. Once the inner eye wall is gone, the outer new eye wall gets even stronger and then contracts and heads back toward the center. And as it begins to move inward, it spins faster and faster. Think of the ice skater that brings his or her arms in and ends up spinning really fast. That's because it's in an ice skater, all the energy spread out over this area. Well, if you're looking at that newly formed eye wall, you've got all that rotational energy, and it's being concentrated in a smaller and smaller area as it shrinks toward the center of the hurricane, and that increases the rotation rate. So what happens, you get this eye wall taking over, the inner eye wall actually dissipates because it's cut off from its energy sources by the new eye wall, and that causes the hurricane strength to drop a little bit. Not a whole lot. I mean, it was still a Category 4. So once that original eye wall is gone, the hurricane is weakened, then it begins to strengthen again as the new eye wall contracts toward the center. It's called an eye wall replacement cycle. They first saw it in the late 1940s. The first well-documented eye wall replacement cycle was, I think, in 1956. And we've known about it since then, and it only happens in really strong hurricanes because they have that much energy. All right, so let's see if we got the 8 o'clock update in. No, not yet. What is going on here? I'll give it a couple more minutes. I'll keep talking so that I can give you the latest as it comes in. What we noticed is that it usually takes them longer during the day, and they usually issue it closer and closer to the scheduled time. At night, when all the bosses are at home and it's just the worker bees still at the Hurricane Center, they tend to get it out earlier and earlier. You know how it is. If you've got 5 bosses standing around, every boss has to be informed, and they've got to discuss it more. And when there are fewer people around, the meteorologist can just get the job done without having to deal with all the other office stuff that goes on. That's my theory. Don't know if it's right, but that's what I think. So, doesn't make it wrong or bad. It just means it's just fewer people to do the same amount of work, and it gets done faster because you don't have to talk to everybody about it. All right, so there it is, 8 o'clock. Just came across right there. I'll show it to you full screen. Okay, still a Cat 5. Still has 165 mile an hour winds, so that has not changed. Gust to 200, that has not changed. Pressure's down just a few millibars, and it's still a Cat 5. So it looks like they've got it under control now. Probably won't have another eye wall replacement cycle, but it could. So it's heading for a Cat 4 into the early hours of tomorrow morning, and then tomorrow evening looks like when the worst of it's going to occur. So that's it for now. Thank you for joining me. We'll be back tomorrow, and by this time tomorrow, there should be a lot going on in the Gulf Coast of Florida that we can talk about, and we should have a much, much better idea of what's going to happen with the Hurricane Milton as it comes on shore. So thank you for joining me. Hope you got something out of this. Hope you join me again. And if you don't join me because the weather's great and you're out enjoying it, good for you. Thanks for joining me.